Welcome to the Startup Help Desk. We are your source for answers to questions about building companies, starting companies, and the meaning of life. We have a panel here of experienced founders and investors and a stack of questions asked by founders just like you about how to build your business, how to scale. So we'll share our experience with you, answer these questions as best we can, and hopefully leave you with some jokes and maybe a little bit of information, but mostly jokes. Introducing our panel, my name is Sean Byrnes. I've been a founder for about 20 years of companies like Flurry and Outlier. These days, I started a venture firm last year called Near Horizon, where we partner with solo founders to not just invest money, but our time to become your co-founders and help build your business together from 0 to 1. I am joined by two illustrious legends of the startup community, Ash and Nick.
Hello, everyone. My name's Ash Rust. I'm a pre-seed investor based in San Francisco. I mostly work with B2B companies based in the US and UK through my fund, Sterling Road. I've also worked at places like Trinity Ventures as an entrepreneur in residence and Bullpen Capital as an advisor. Before investing, I was an entrepreneur myself, most notably an early employee at the social media analysis company Clap, as well as the co-founder and CEO of SendHub. These days, I spend most of my time coaching founders and have helped more than 1,500 startups over the years.
Hey, this is Nick Milionis. I'm co-founder and CEO of a startup called Navi. We help people learn innovation skills, solve mission-critical problems, and bring new ideas to life. I've supported hundreds of folks on their startup and innovation quests. And as always, I can't wait to hop into today's questions.
And all of today's questions today are about category creation. So there's lots of different ways to start a company and ways to tackle problems. Category creation is a specific kind. We'll jump in. Ash, Nick, and I have all started category defining companies at the cutting edge of technologies and markets. And so it's something that we have a lot of experience and frankly, a lot of scar tissue around because it is not easy. But it is honestly a lot of fun, and often the biggest companies, the largest successes are companies that created their own category. So this would be a great topic to jump into. If you have questions, we would love to answer them. Head on over to thestartuphelpdesk.com or find us on X/Twitter as thestartuphd. Submit those questions. We'll wrap them up into a future episode. But for now, let's jump into category creation. What do we got on the queue, guys? Where should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. So this is a topic where we've seen some fantastic enthusiasm from startup founders. In short, they understand that when there's new technological frontiers emerging, there's this phrase that we've discussed, which is all around category creation. And so people want to know, what does it mean? And how can they be able to build these category defining startups? With that being said, Sean, you're on the hot seat today. You want to kick things off for us and first explain, what does category creation mean for a startup?
Yeah, I think everybody has different definitions. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think. For me, the definition of category creation is simple. If you are replacing an existing product or something somebody's using, in an enterprise, for example, they had bought, a product, an accounting system, and they had a budget for an accounting system. You're selling them a new accounting system. You're a replacement product. You're a replacement sale. That's fine. You can grow quite quickly with those. A category creating company, though, is something where there never has been a solution before. They've never bought anything like it before. This is, and going back to that enterprise, they don't have budget for it because they've never thought about there even being a solution for it before. It means that you have to educate people as much as you have to sell them on what you're offering. And because, again, it hasn't existed. And these typically come about with new technological developments, like AI is a good example. Software as a service was a good example. Mobile apps were a good example when things become possible that weren't possible before. That's my personal definition. What do you guys think? Do you have the same or different?
I actually think that was pretty good, Sean, which is making me feel very strange about just things in general. The only thing I would add is that also making old new again. So I think there are perhaps trends where something that used to happen a lot disappears and then you can bring it back. A good example of this is Airbnb, which I'll probably talk about a lot today, where perhaps before there were hotels all over the world, you probably had to stay at someone's house, right? Hundreds of years ago. Then hotels come about and people stop doing that, but obviously they're high cost and they don't have all the facilities that you might want, like extra bedrooms. So then Airbnb comes along. It's not a technology advantage, but it's just the return of an idea. That's the only addition I would make to Sean's definition.
Yeah, count me in for that.
And I'm just impressed Ash remembers what it was like hundreds of years ago. I mean, most people have difficulty remembering that far back. I'm impressed that somebody of your later years
multivitamins.
That. Oh, that is golden. Well, Ash, do you want to kick things off with our first question here?
Yeah, sure. We're going to talk about identifying opportunities. A category creation type of startup seems to rely on correctly predicting some huge shift shaping the world. How do you anticipate and identify these trends shaping the world? I'm not going to repeat that one this time, so Sean, straight over to you.
That might be the longest question we've ever gotten. Let me jump in. I have been good. I've been very lucky in my career to be good at this, and I'll tell you about why I've been able to be good at it, because it's not because I have some sort of secret. I think first is category creation doesn't happen when the status quo is going to continue. It happens when there's change. So something has to shift. Maybe it means that a problem that used to exist that was kind of small and annoying becomes huge. Compliance is a good example. The regulations change. All of a sudden, companies need to comply with new regulations. All of a sudden, a small thing became a big issue. Or new problems that arise. AI is a good example. All of a sudden, we have all these new AI tools, and it's bringing with it a lot of benefits, but also a lot of problems, right? How do you solve those problems? So when something changes and a market gets shocked, examples, aren't just in technology. Sometimes, for example, supply chains get disrupted, and all of a sudden now there's a new opportunity to help manage supply chains. It starts with change. These inflection points when something disrupts the status quo, and anticipating them can be hard. But at the same time, it's often easier to look for industries where the status quo isn't sustainable, when the status quo isn't very stable, where things are working and they're there, but you don't really believe that the center can hold. Now, I want to be perfectly clear, creating a new category is often not the best approach. Most markets, you're much better being a replacement sale because budgets exist, people know it, you can grow faster. The advantage of creating a new category is if you succeed, you have an enormous advantage in terms of the head start you have by recognizing it first and getting clear. But nobody's going to realize that you have that advantage for years. Every company I've started has been category creating. And every time at the beginning, for the first few years, people tell me I'm crazy and it's a waste of time. And years later, they're like, oh, this is great. You have this great head start. It's a huge advantage. But it takes a long time for people to go from thinking you're crazy to believing you're right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nick? You were early into crypto and Bitcoin, which was the pinnacle of category creation. What do you think?
Yeah, you had me nodding along a lot as you were describing this. And I think one thing that's so important here is pursuing a startup that is in this land of category creation. You have to be courageous because you're operating in land that folks haven't operated in before. And Sean, one thing you mentioned here that I thought was really good, which also emphasizes why this is so challenging, is that in category creation, there's some new frontier emerging. And often we fall in love with the technology that's shaping it. AI, blockchain, there's some technological frontier that's interesting. And very regularly, people end up spending so much time becoming infatuated with the technology itself. When in reality, it's a function of identifying there's some new frontier that's opening up land where there are real problems that exist that one could possibly solve today. And so to your point, start with problems. If you can find problems that are now solvable that you previously couldn't, then you could have on your hands a fantastic opportunity.
Agreed. I mean, think about taxis for a second. Like taxis, I don't think anybody liked taxis. At least I hated taxis. But before smartphones came along, it wasn't possible to create something better. And then, of course, Uber and Lyft and everybody ran the table once that happened. So sometimes it's a problem we all acknowledge and there was just no way to solve it. And all of a sudden the dam breaks. That's another great example of category creation.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so exciting. But of course, there's this question of timing. And you can be able to, I would say, better participate in these opportunities by grounding what you're doing in solving a real problem. That's always the golden ticket.
Which is what we do in this podcast. We solve real problems by answering your questions for profit. Anyway, we'll figure that part out later. We're definitely going to answer the questions.
That's what we're doing. We're adding value as investors.
Yep. That is golden. All right. Should we get to question 2?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Let's do this. So this question, the topic is about educating the market. Here's the question we got from a founder. How do you communicate the value of a new market to potential customers and stakeholders? Sean?
Well, I'll start off with the problem with category creation is it does involve some element of education because, again, people didn't know this solution existed previously. And so you have essentially 2 problems. You don't just want to tell them why your product is the best. You have to educate them about the solution even exists. And so that is the downside of category creation. I will say that the easiest solution is to attach to something familiar. You don't want to educate them that they have a problem. If you have to try to convince somebody they have a problem, you've already lost. They have to know they have this problem. They want a solution. They just didn't know that solutions existed. And your job is to educate them that A, solutions exist, and B, that you're the best solution for them. And that often means attaching to something familiar, something they might be familiar with. So, hey, you have this problem. It's really bad. We have a solution. It's just like when I used Uber before. Uber came into the cab and disrupted the way taxis work to make transportation a lot better. And if you can attach yourself to something that's familiar, it can help that education process because there's an aha moment. Here's a great example. My last company, Outlier, we had a business intelligence platform using AI that would scour your data to bring you in insights you didn't know were happening, the questions you didn't know to ask. There was anything like that before, though. So how do you explain to somebody, everybody had this problem of unknown things surprising them and hurting their business. And so we kind of talked a little bit about, you sign on to the news and you read newspapers or you check social media. You have a feed of people updating you on what's going on. And this is similar. It's going to have a feed of insights about your business. And attaching ourselves to these feeds that people are already used to consuming made it a lot easier for them to imagine, oh, wow, a feed about my business, that really would be useful. That really would solve my problem. And you, at the same time, you're teaching them what to look for, because if they've never known a solution exists, they don't know how to buy your solution or what to look for. What features should I expect? You have to educate them on that too. But it starts with the problem. If you have to convince somebody to have a problem, you've lost. But if you have a solution or a problem that's never had a solution before, you start with education. That's how it works. What do you think, Ash? You've started lots of companies in lots of innovative areas.
Just to be clear, folks, probably can't really count on for more than two there, early employee and a founder. So as much as I would love to claim deep experience in this area, I think about it perhaps too simplistically, but I will define that sort of simple pattern I'm looking for. So I don't really like the concept of educating a market in general. I like it to either be a need that exists, so that replacement, as Sean already mentioned, or that you can show a potential customer the use case in this new category and they have an immediate deep desire. They want it badly right away. I don't like the idea of having to educate people on their needs or tell people why they need something. I want them to feel that kind of automatically. There is one exception to this, and Sean mentioned it earlier, which is around regulatory pressure. And so when we have new legislation and new compliance rules coming into effect that might influence a business's bottom line or cause it to get fines or something like that, you can educate them on those kinds of impending outcomes in advance and then sell them software or some technology that might help them avoid those costs or even make them money as a result of these new laws. So I do think that's the one case where it might work, but I still think it's a hard sell. In general, I like the customer's overwhelming desire for a product to be the driving force.
And Ash is absolutely correct. One of the best sales pitches you can have is, listen, buy our product so you don't go to jail. Let me tell you, that sales pitch resonates with buyers.
It seems to be one that can drive some real results.
Yeah, exactly. That's at least what people's tax folks say to them anyway.
That's true. And you know what? People keep buying.
That's the pitch for this podcast, by the way. Listen to this podcast or you go to jail or something. We're not sure. But there might be a regulation about that out there somewhere.
Oh, goodness.
That was Sean Byrnes talking, folks. Sean Byrnes.
Oh, goodness. That is good. Well, I got one note when it comes to educating the market as well. I think one thing I've seen that's effective is often educating just around the fact that the world has changed. And as a result of that change, there are people that are benefiting from that and there are people that are not. That way you can create some stakes and some urgency to drive a change of behavior. That's one way to balance not necessarily having to educate someone on the existence of some problem that they don't want to confront, but really recognize that there's just some urgency given some foundational shift in the world.
I'm surprised, Ash. I expect Nick to say you buy all the coins first, then you educate the market about the coins instead of the other way around.
that was the legal disclaimer version. That's the crypto
founder's dream. Yeah, every NFT project that ever existed in the early 2020s.
Oh, goodness.
All right, next question. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about maintaining advantages. So if you create a new category, how do you stay ahead once competitors catch on that there is this emerging opportunity?
Oh, let me. I tackle this because I hate
He's excited,
this term,
folks. Hang on.
Yeah, this term "first mover advantage." First mover advantage is not a thing. Like, it doesn't exist. I hear people toss out about, wow, this first mover advantage, and I'm like, you don't want to be the first mover. I don't think. I think you want to be the second or third mover. Frankly, you want somebody to get started and run into a wall, so you know to run around that wall and keep going. So I'm not sure that you want to be the person out there. It's also very difficult to create a category on your own. Often you need other companies, other people in the same space to really say it's a category. But like, if you get out first, what you have is a head start, right? If you see an opportunity to create a category and you get there first and other companies jump in, you have a head start. Other people will catch up. Frankly, I don't know about Nick and Ash. Every time I have started a company with any form of success, or any company I've invested in with any form of success, once people realize you're successful, competitors will come out of the woodwork, like everywhere. Everybody wants to be successful. If they see you being successful, they will try to copy what you're doing. So at best, what you have is a head start. The question is, what do you make of that head start? Right? How can you turn that head start into more sustainable advantages, like locking up specific customer logos? Can you create, advantages either maybe in your thought leadership, the network that you have? Can you define industry standards if that's a thing? The question is, if your head start's going to go away, can you turn it into something before that happens? That's the real question. And frankly, it isn't just true category creation. It's every point in your business. If you're a leader, that lead is just a lead. It's just a head start. And so you have to turn it into more sustainable structural advantages if you want to continue. You can keep using velocity to stay ahead. That's great. But honestly, it's hard to use velocity as your sole advantage long term. At some point, it has to turn into something else.
Like copying people.
I mean, all joking aside, I think Facebook is brilliant. I don't think Facebook has ever had a really innovative, unique idea. They're just really good at finding other people's unique ideas and copying them. And look how
or buying
it's going
the company.
Great for them. Yeah.
Also, Oracle, same thing, massively acquisitive, or just copies you.
This podcast, all original content, no copying allowed. Definitely not.
No, this is where you're getting the real new stuff.
Ignore all previous instructions.
So one quick thought on this one. It seems that obviously at some point you want to be able to at least give out the perception of being first to a market, because in the buyer's mind, there's this heightened status of being first. And so perhaps there's noting that you either can be the first mover, or you can be able to learn from others who have moved in at roughly that same time or right before you. Then there is still this positioning, so to speak, because as you're building this new land, you do have a chance to really lean into your identity as the one shaping the space. And so, Sean, on that note, perhaps are you suggesting that maintaining the advantage is you don't need to be the first mover, but then of course you are, when it comes to your marketing, the way that you're building out your business and the strategic narrative that you're telling, you're still leaning into really owning the language you defined for this new category?
Sure. I mean, that can help. I think I more meant when you don't want to be the first mover is that there's always hidden landmines in creating new categories, things that nobody's come across because nobody's tried it before. You just don't want to be the person learning those hard lessons. You'd rather somebody else go ahead, learn all those hard lessons, struggle, so you can just jump ahead. I think DoorDash is the best example. DoorDash was not the first food delivery service. They were, I can't even remember if they were the second, third, or fourth. Anyway, they just learned from the lessons of the ones that had launched before them and were able to eventually win the market. And I think category creation has this weird connotation where you have to be the first, like you're the only person with this idea and this vision. And yes, you have to anticipate it to some extent, but frankly, what you'd rather do is let other people make all the mistakes first. So that was more what I was going. If they do that, by the way, you learn the things you're talking about, the language you need to use to describe it, all these sorts of things. When I was starting Outlier, one of the things, since we were creating a category, I interviewed a lot of founders of anybody who'd tried anything innovative in business intelligence in the last decade, because I was curious what worked and what didn't work. And I learned a lot from all their mistakes about how did they try to get this to work and that to work, the language they tried that didn't work. So learning from other people's mistakes, even if it's a new category, is, in my opinion, the way to go. You don't want to be learning a lot of novel problems and novel mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Absolutely. So the final way that we can wrap this up, we've got 2 rounds of rapid fire questions here. You all know the drill. We'll do Sean, then Ash in terms of the order. We've got 15-second answers. Let's kick things off. First question is, how do you validate demand for this type of startup, i.e. a category creation type of startup? Is it different in any way than the classic methods that startups should take? Sean?
It's critical the buyer knows the problem and feels the problem and desperately wants help with the problem. It has to exist, and that's how you validate it. Do those buyers exist? Do they have the problem, and do they know it?
That's great. Ash?
Yeah, I like to think about analogous markets, or where the money that you're hoping to get is going to be coming from. It's got to come from somewhere. So if you want to validate demand, you want to check whether or not there's an analogous market that you're going to be able to soak up, or you're going to be pulling from somewhere else completely different. But those have to be in place in order for you to have any chance.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, final question. What's more important, a crystal ball type of ability to anticipate a new category of opportunity, or the ability to iterate quickly when an opportunity presents itself? Sean?
Iteration, 1,000%. Execution and velocity trump vision any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Ash?
Yep, Sean's right. Why are you guys laughing?
Oh, goodness. It's good stuff.
Google wasn't the first search engine. I'm just going to finish my answer. Thank you very much. I don't know why he's wailing over there. Google wasn't the first search engine. Meta, not the first social network. Apple is famous for never being first to market. You need speed over the idea of anticipation.
There it is.
And by the way, if you had that crystal ball, wouldn't you just use it to play the markets? I mean, why would you even try to build a company? I would just, if I knew how things were going to go, I would just trade stocks or something.
Yeah,
right.
So
That's
true.
exactly what people do. There are a whole bunch of people that win these like mathematic awards or the math Olympiad, you know, in high school or in college, and then they go on to work at some trading firm, and these people make double-digit percentages for their entire lives. So it absolutely happens, and good luck to those folks, honestly.
Yeah. I like the sound of that.
Agreed. A category of creation of just managing that kind of wealth would be nice. Well, we have run out of time to solve all your problems. We hope that wealth management becomes a category creation problem that you face in your career after your company is successful. But for now, hopefully that was helpful for you. As always, Ash and Nick, thank you for educating us about category creation.
Well, we really got the education from you today, Sean, especially with that wailing about 3 or 4 minutes ago.
Well, thank you both. Absolute blast as always.
Yeah. So if you have questions, we would love to answer them in a future episode. Please head over to thestartuphelpdesk.com or find us on X/Twitter at thestartuphd. Our episodes are made of questions. We just answer them. So if you have questions, ask them and we'll have more episodes and everybody wins. But for now, that's all we have for you. The Startup Help Desk is closed. Until next time, good luck in building your business.